Hi, I'm Katie Ziskind. I'm the owner of Wisdom Within Counseling and Coaching. You can learn more if you're a high conflict couple in crisis on the brink of divorce, about rebuilding a secure emotional connection, building playfulness, and gaining healthy communication skills. You can work individually with me at wisdomwithinct.com. That's wisdomwithinct.com. This video is all about high conflict couples. So if you're a high conflict couple, you get into very intense arguments. In a split second, things escalate. It's like fire is everywhere. You're angry, you're shouting, you're crying, you're yelling. The fights get very intense very quickly. You may be married for 10, 20, or 30 years and be stuck in this dynamic. You may even have young children that are overhearing these fights, or you're stressed out from parenting, or there can be various triggers to these fights. Maybe it's a fight around dinner time, or what food you fed your son, or something about work. All of these fights are rooted in childhood trauma. And so in our couples work and relationship coaching work together, I teach you how to heal those inner child wounds. So when we have a high conflict fight cycle, one of you has an anxious attachment style and the other has an avoidant attachment style. An anxious attachment style and an avoidant attachment style are rooted in having narcissistic, emotionally unavailable, or explosive and angry caregivers or parents. So if you look at your childhood, you may say, how does my childhood really have any impact in my current fight cycle? Well, it does. When you were a child, there were core memories, maybe not all the time, but maybe 10% of your memories, of these core memories, link back to feeling inadequate, feeling small, powerless, inferior, like you're the problem child in the whole family, and all the family members blame their dysfunction on you. You may have also had the job as a child of being a people pleaser. This means that you had to placate your highly anxious or highly critical mother's emotions. Your mother was up and down. Sometimes she would get really angry or really anxious, or sometimes she'd just be happy, but you never knew what you were going to get. Your dad may have been kind sometimes, but required a lot of you. Maybe you had to be a perfectionist, or he had traits of narcissism where he would explode in anger if you said the wrong thing, or if you wanted to express yourself in a certain way, it was not allowed. You had to fit into a certain box. So you and your spouse have developed an anxious attachment or an avoidant attachment style. And these attachment styles don't happen, out of the blue. They happen due to childhood trauma, emotional abuse, and experiences of neglect. And so right now you might be saying, how could us be fighting about dinner actually be connected to this? Well, I help you see that, and I help you see value in healing your inner child wounds together. When you are in a conflict or argument, it can feel so frustrating, hopeless. You can feel rejected. You can feel confused. Your spouse is threatening divorce. You're like, what should we do? I offer you structured guidance, and I am very experienced with high conflict couples. I teach you how to build emotional intimacy. Emotional intimacy and emotional security go hand in hand, and they are tools and skills that we do not learn when we have narcissistic parents. When you were invalidated as a child, or told you were the problem, or told you were too much or too sensitive, you shift into fight, flight, and freeze responses or survival responses due to the trauma. Your body adapted to survive, and we can thank those survival mechanisms and those trauma responses. But in your marriage to this day, you're still stuck in survival mode. You and your spouse are reacting in a very intense emotional state rather than responding from a place of secure attachment. So I teach you and your spouse how to take conflicts and use them as opportunities for building emotional playfulness, emotional intimacy, emotional security, and actually define what does emotional security look like. Because when you grow up with childhood trauma, you get stuck in people-pleasing mode, perfectionist mode, performing mode, or caretaker mode. And in a secure attachment, you don't actually have to be any of those things. You can trust that you're lovable and worthy of love just by simply being yourself. So part of marriage counseling for high conflict couples and relationship coaching involves helping you both be your authentic selves. I teach you how to step out of defensiveness, stop the silent treatment, stop cycles of avoidance and withdraw. So a lot of times when we have trauma in childhood, you avoid conflict. As a child, you learned that conflict led to anxiety or anger in your parent. Conflict led to a bowl being thrown across the room and dishes being broken. Conflict led to your parent having a mental breakdown and going to the hospital. Conflict led to something dangerous. So you avoid conflict, but avoiding conflict in your marriage actually causes more damage. So I teach you actually how to address the conflict by stepping into emotional intimacy. So I teach you how to do things like hold hands when you're talking, or look at each other, or have emotional validation tools in your toolbox. And we don't learn how to do these things when we grow up with parents that make us care for them, or make us people please for them, or make us perform to get their approval. So essentially, you learned that love was conditional. If you got a straight A in a class, then you got loved or praise. Or if you did well on the football team, then you got your parents' or father's approval or praise. And that means that love was unconditional, love was conditional, and love was chaotic, and love was inconsistent. So as a child, you associated love and intimacy with chaos. So now you avoid and ignore conflicts, avoid intimacy, and that's a survival mechanism. And I really want to help you guys build a secure connection. High conflict couples therapists like myself have very, very specialized training. So I have expertise in this unique specialty of couples counseling. I want to just share with you that a lot of times couples that I see started off with a more generalist couples therapist or even individual counselors that actually sabotage their couple bubble. So your couple bubble is something that I help you strengthen and grow in our work together. I typically meet with couples for 90 minutes of duration at a minimum, and we can do longer sessions if you would like. I meet on telehealth video, and we typically meet twice a week when you're in crisis on the brink of divorce, because we have to start getting underneath the fight cycle. And this is oftentimes a very, very painful, damaging fight cycle that you're stuck in. And as we start to get underneath it, we start to look at the emotions that you're experiencing versus just trying to fix the symptom or the problem. But when you're in individual therapy or working with an inexperienced couples therapist, they might recommend divorce. They might tell you you're incompatible. These are myths. Couples are not incompatible. They're triggering each other's earliest, most painful wounds. And I help you understand how the areas where your parents fell short are actually directly related to your high conflict fight cycle. So I help you break cycles of the silent treatment, defensiveness, criticism, snapping, anger, withdraw, door slamming. All of these negative things are actually harming your marriage, and you both are craving a more secure, loving, playful bond. I teach you and guide you step by step in how to get there. Sessions are highly structured, so I'm not just going to sit here and say, okay, yeah, okay. A lot of generalist therapists will do that. I am right there in the moment with you, helping you identify the emotion, the core emotion under anger, helping you identify how that emotion is linked back to having a narcissistic mother, a highly critical, highly anxious mother, or a father that emotionally exploded and then emotionally abandoned you and emotionally avoided you, or never talked with you about your feelings. And I help you guys start to have a more secure bond, oftentimes for the first time in your life, you get to have this bond together. So fights are an opportunity for more togetherness and more unity and more closeness. But you need a professional who has expertise and training in this area like myself. Not all therapists, individual therapists or couples therapists, have training. So I'm trained in imago therapy, emotionally focused couples therapy, somatic yoga therapy for complex post-traumatic stress disorder. A lot of couples come in saying, what is post-traumatic stress disorder? I thought that's something that people in the military who go to Afghanistan get. You can get post-traumatic stress disorder from having a parent that devalues you, tells you you're the problem, blames you, guilt trips you, makes you feel like you have to change everything about yourself to get their approval. That causes trauma. Fight, flight, and freeze, right? Fight is what's going on in your high conflict fights. Then we have flight, which is the avoidance of conflict and the withdraw, pulling away. And freeze is where you guys end up in a standoff. So I help you break those painful cycles and actually change how you're interacting for the better. So you gain emotional intimacy tools. Also, I do this by connecting you to those inner child wounds and having you talk with your partner, not just talk to me, but talk with your partner in session. So you build a stronger couple bubble and you rebuild your marriage right in session. So every single session with me is a more positive experience of married life so that you can start to translate that outside of session. I would love to work with you if you're on the brink of divorce, if you're contemplating divorce, if you're saying, are we really compatible? Why are we stuck in this horrible fight cycle that just leaves us in pain and powerless, right? Sometimes couples come to me and say, oh, should we open our marriage? Like, we think of everything to try to solve these problems. And what I want to do is help you understand an anxious and avoidant attachment style pattern, how to build a secure attachment. I help you talk about attachment wounds, your needs, and the core memories that these are linked back to. I help you not necessarily blame your parents, but understand and validate your inner child wounds and those unmet love needs that you deeply crave and want your spouse to be meeting. And your spouse probably has no idea what's at the root of this either. So I help you both gain a deeper understanding for these emotional needs and emotional wounds to build more security, playfulness, and connection than you've ever had. I am deeply passionate about working with high conflict couples, and I love working with long-term couples who might be raising young children and really actually want to be even better parents and show their children conflict resolution and stop yelling around their kids and be able to show up parenting much better. I also am a certified sex therapy informed professional, meaning I talk with couples about sex. Sex is often taboo, dirty, not talked about. Oh, my partner found out I have a sex toy, I should hide it, right? We literally avoid talking about sex neuroticism. So I want you to have a safe space to talk about sex, your genitals, sexual pleasure, talk with your partner about your fantasies, what turns you on, how to have a better, more fulfilling and satisfying sex life. And usually when you're stuck in high conflict fights, you haven't had sex for months. And the sex that you've had is lifeless, dull, boring, and maybe even involves some criticism. So you're stuck in a sexual rejection and sexual avoidance cycle as well when you have emotional intimacy issues. So I would love to address both building emotional intimacy and rebuilding sexual intimacy. I'm Katie Ziskind. I'm a Gottman Level 2 trained marriage specialist. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. So I have a master's degree in marriage and family therapy. I want to have you, I caution against listening to people that are just coaches because they have no training. Like, make sure, I would love to work with you, but make sure you're working with someone that has a master's degree. Sometimes couples that are working with me will be like, oh, I just saw this person on YouTube. And at the end of their video, it says this person is not licensed, has no mental health training. Like, make sure you're working with someone that has extensive training like myself. Anyway, I'm a certified sex therapy informed professional. I'm trained in imago therapy, emotionally focused couples therapy. All this means is that I have extensive hours of training to help target the intersectionality, the overlap between complex post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, anxious attachment styles, avoidant attachment styles, the interplay and the dynamic between the two of you. I see the inner child in each of you that is wounded and hurt, and the adult that deeply wants to have security, and I help you communicate from a place of emotional validation. So I'd love to help you build a sense of playfulness and break cycles of high conflict fighting. I'm Katie Ziskind. I also have a podcast called All Things Love and Intimacy. It is available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify Podcasts. So All Things Love and Intimacy is a great free resource before getting started with me. You can go ahead onto my website, wisdomwithinct.com, and book and schedule right in my calendar. So you can see my availability, my openings. You can schedule your first 90-minute couples session to improve your marriage and start investing in your couple bubble rather than Googling divorce lawyers. That's literally only going to cause you guys more pain. Because when you go through a divorce, sure, if there's physical violence, get divorced. We don't need any of that. I don't work with couples who have domestic physical violence going on. I do work with couples that are stuck in emotional toxic cycles. But you will find, no matter, if you do get divorced and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on divorce lawyers and go through all of that trauma, now your kids have 2 homes, then you find a new partner, your inner child wounds and these unresolved childhood traumas will still get triggered. You will end up in the same high conflict dynamic with a different person given enough time. So I would rather help you invest time and attention into healing these inner child wounds now. Like, thank goodness your partner is triggering these feelings. Like, let's use this as an opportunity for connection. So I would love to support you guys. You can book right in my calendar, see my availability, and get started in high conflict specialized marriage counseling that addresses complex trauma and your inner child wounds by heading over to wisdomwithinct.com. That's wisdomwithinct.com. I'm Katie Ziskind, and I would love to support you in rebuilding emotional connection as well as sexual intimacy, and give you a safe place to express your emotions and heal this trauma cycle, this toxic cycle that you're stuck in. So I hope you have a wonderful day.